Welcome back, Putting for Dough post Augusta. I don't even know where to begin. A tree falling at Augusta, delaying the event, causing a suspension overnight is probably like the fifth most ridiculous thing that happened over this entire 4-day stretch at Jazz Raz DFS at Shander Show for me. One of them is the improbable behind me. The Live tournament was present. Tiger was not. I mean, technically, you had so much shit going on here, Ben, at Augusta. It was a fantastic Masters, one that I don't think that we would normally say under circumstances where the weather was so prominent in impacting the course and all. But you talk about theater, especially since it's like the NBA and everything else kind of ended early, allowed us to all watch golf on an Easter Sunday. But man, what a day, what a tournament.
It ended up great. It really did. Like, for so many bizarre situations, I was worried that the tournament was just going to be like a Monday finish and the course is a mess and someone wins and it feels hollow. We didn't get that at all. Like, we got a real test of elite players. And obviously, now it wasn't from a personal standpoint, it was not what I wanted, but you couldn't ask for much more. I mean, Jon Rahm, he went and took the tournament. And yes, Brooks got hunted down a little bit, no doubt about it. But I thought it was a fantastic Masters. There were obviously some curveballs. The man behind you, I mean, what are we even doing there? And then Tiger, I'm not going to overreact to that. That was as bad of a situation as he could be in. And I'm assuming the Masters weather will be by far the worst weather he will face all year.
Yeah. I mean, we should kind of, though, let's start with those three. I mean, just to look at this, by the way, Rory has withdrawn from
Thank
the
God.
RBC.
He needs some time.
Yeah. He's another one. I mean,
it's got to be mental, right?
Well, yeah, but it's mental. I think, look, and I'm not going to make light of this by any means. Aaron Wise is taking some time off. So there's clearly an issue where if somebody's dealing with their mental health, and we wish them the best and whatever that they can do, if it's time off, if it's counsel, if it's just taking a minute to an hour to a week, what have you, that's fine. So I don't want to make light of that by any means. But I also think that if that's not what Rory is dealing with, Ben, then would you want to come out and talk to people and know that no matter what you do at the RBC is going to be Masters first? And, you know, it's a lot right now. He doesn't have to. That's all I'm saying. He's, like you said, he's probably mentally exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm as big a Rory backer as there is, and I think I gloss over a lot of stuff with him. I truly think at times some of the narratives are ridiculous, but there's no denying that not winning the Masters is one thing. Obviously, it's incredibly difficult to win a major. If you can't make a cut in an 85-man field at a course like that, I mean, that clearly there's just something, you know, he's searching. He went to Augusta. He played a ton of rounds. That made no difference. You know, last year he played the week before. He is all over the place, and he's going to have to wait another year for another shot. But you know what? The RBC, this is a weird situation in itself. And I know we're going to get there. We'll talk Augusta a little more. This is an elevated event this year. So like all these big guys.
Ben, second, right?
Crazy situation of how many guys have this turnaround now.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it too. It's like eliminating a bye week, if you will, in the NFL schedule or what have you, where you're forced almost to come out and play again, which is great for us, especially from a betting standpoint. And there's going to be some value we'll talk about. But just to bring it back to Rahm real quick, if we can, and then we have to get thoughts on Tiger. But Rahm was billed odds discussion as part of this big three, right? It was this trios, this big three. But if you looked at it from the start of the season, at least, right, when these three were playing consistent, and I know Rory has been absent, and you just look at what he was doing elsewhere for the most part, but at no point were the other guys in Scotty and Rory this time, like this year leading up to it, were on any type of tear that Rahm was. And it was almost like, well, Rahm taking a step back or a step and a half back, right, as we saw Bay Hill and all, like what moved forward, put him in this category of the big three. Like he would have been probably even more ridiculous. He would have been an odds-on favorite and then some, Ben, if he had continued that tear or had just like stabilized that tear. So the whole conversation coming into it was big three, Yet at his best recent, that stretch that we've seen really start of the year, nobody was dominant like Rahm. And Scotty, like last year, like, don't get me wrong, defending champ, he was fantastic. He putt like a banshee. But I'm just saying this year coming into it. Does that make sense?
100%, because I mean, we're all guilty of it. Maybe the recency bias. Rahm was on another level, and then he went to Florida, which he never really plays well down there. Uneventful at Bay Hill long term. He kind of faded. He pulled out of the Players. He got sick, and then he didn't win, the match play. And it was like, oh, like Rahm kind of like peaked.
Way overreaction. Right.
Scheffler, other guys stepped up, and it's last thing I'll say. If what you're saying to this point, if the Masters was right after Genesis, Rahm would have been like 5-1.
Amazing.
It's insane.
Maybe even like 450 or 4-1.
It's crazy.
Like the books, right?
It was when you look back at the year, you're just like, even in DFS circles, for you guys watching, I know we're on the OddsShopper Golf channel and we're betting focus, but if you played DFS, Rahm was not like the guy up top. Rory was. Like, it was fascinating.
All right, real quick, thoughts on Tiger. For me, I know where you're going, and I definitely think the weather made an impact here. But if he's only going to play majors in the Genesis, it's hard for me to get excited. If this were any other athlete in any other sport, including the PGA, mind you, we would be like, all right, get out. Like, you're Rafael Palmeiro here. You're just hanging around to break records. And at this point, I don't even think Tiger can – like, Tiger is more likely – I hate to say it, but Tiger is more likely to break his ankle at this point than a record, Ben.
Yeah, but it's just like he's earned the right to do literally whatever he wants.
And I'm not hating on him for doing
that.
I'm just saying it's losing appeal for me.
It doesn't bother me just because I haven't taken it seriously, to be honest. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just like, if Tiger wants to play, it's awesome. And if he's on TV, I'll watch it. He's not right now a serious threat in these tournaments. He's just not.
Fair enough. Yeah. And Pete, look, people are going to bet. They're going to load up the Tiger markets. You do as reckless, whatever you want. We're going to move on to the RBC. It's the OddsShopper Golf channel, as Ben mentioned. Thumbs up, subscribe. We'll tell you about what's going on across the board. Here's what's happening at Bet365 really quick. It's below you. You'll see a link in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia. You have to be 21 or older. Gambling problem, as you know, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Take 60 seconds out of your life. You're going to bet $1 and get $200 right back. All you need to do is just sign up and deposit $10. Again, that takes about a minute. So you know you'll be in good shape and you'll be ready to go. $1 on whatever the hell you want turns into $200. Okay, so let's look at the RBC. We know, of course, Harbor Town. We know that this is the week after the Masters, yet it's the elevated event. So clearly there is a catalyst, if you will, if that's a pitchfork or a taser or anything, kind of just corralling guys into this event, unless you're Rory McIlroy, of course. Where do you look as far as like the ability to attack? You basically have to be Colin Morikawa on steroids to be able to control your shots here on the green. These greens are like quarters that you have to land a golf ball on. But outside of that, what are you looking at before we start the top itself? And we'll look through these and then hit a couple of matchups and 3 balls before we get out of here.
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation just because Harbor Town, I think I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's more of a gimmicky course. It's one of the extremes. Like, it's very technical. It's very short. It's tough. You got to scramble. Bermuda, not overly punishing in the rough, but like, it's just not a typical course. I'd say it's on one side of the scale when you look at it. Now, the fascinating thing that I'm going to talk about a lot here is going to be when you look at a place like Harbor Town, it's a stop on tour that certain guys go to every year. Some of them are RBC guys, but other guys just love it. Is the course history going to be as relevant this year? Because you've got big time names here and you don't normally see that. So it's like, yes, some of these guys have thrived here all the time, but would they have the same course history if Scheffler and Rahm and Morikawa and Hovland were here every year?
So I think you're onto something. First off, Cantlay would be the guy that I think you would, and I'm sure you're going to start and talk to him, and I'm not going to talk about him as far as a bet, but you'd start to look at the top of the board and you'd say, well, where can I find this type of genesis, right, of course history, as well as being able to handle anybody. And Sunday aside, my God, we didn't talk about Patrick Cantlay.
The pace of play.
Holy shit. I mean, it was awful, especially from a DFS standpoint, watching you just drop.
It's not fair. I'm no fan of Brooks. That is not fair. They need to do something about that.
Oh, what happened with him on the 5?
Just like it is a real thing to be like in a group that is constantly waiting like that. Cantlay played so slow. I don't blame Brooks for being out of rhythm. I'm not saying that's why he lost by any stretch.
You're right.
Rahm dealt with it fine. You can't have it to that level. That's a ridiculous thing that a group had to deal with, and they shouldn't.
There's a video, Ben, of Hovland chipping while Cantlay is still walking up the fairway, where Hovland's just like, I've had it.
Yeah,
like, I can't, because you know what? And I don't blame Victor Hovland by any means, because anybody who's ever been in this situation knows that if it's not you, you want to do everything possible to let the world know that it's not you. Hey, it's an individual sport, all right? There's no I in golf.
That's right. No, it was not a group thing. It was, and listen, Cantlay's a great player. That's ridiculous though. And yes,
that's you're right. At one point, they were nearly a hole and a half behind. It was insane.
Should have been on the clock immediately, but that's
Him
and Spieth. Him and Spieth are going to be the guys up top in terms of the, when you think of RBC Heritage, to me, I think of Spieth and Cantlay in terms of the big names that come here.
Yeah, let's look at that. Okay, so we know, because I think you raise an interesting point about the added field with the elevated event, but the one, maybe it's not even a counter, but it's a second factor involved, is when you reference this as a gimmicky course, it truly is, in the sense of you have to club down, you have to shape shots, like you have to lay up at certain times only because the course is demanding. So you're not just it's not just another event for Scotty Scheffler and the guys you referenced. Morikawa, I think, is best suited for this, right? But it's not just another event. You have to be a tactician. You really have to be sharp in certain areas and comfortable with it, only in the sense of that I think it may help mitigate. We'll see. Where do you start at the top of the board?
So I'm going to start with Colin Morikawa. Again, this is kind of trying to find the best of both worlds. 18-1. You want to shop this? Again, we'll talk about OddsShopper Premium and all the easy ways to make sure you get the best number. We're going to use DK as the example. But I just look at Morikawa. He didn't get into the mix at the Masters, but he didn't play terrible either. He's an amazing player, an amazing iron player. It's almost I can find faults with everybody else minus Scheffler. I mean, Rahm, best player in the world, but he just won the Masters. That's not easy. I don't like Cantlay's price. Jordan Spieth, not that it means he can't win, but he basically said, I'm running on fumes. I have nothing left, and I need to adjust my schedule in the future years because this is just not, I don't have the energy right now to keep playing, basically. So I think Morikawa really checks a ton of boxes, and depending on the weather, if it becomes an iron competition, who better than Morikawa? He's got some reps at this course already, a top 10 in 2021.
Yeah, anything that you look at, specifically approach, right? Gating shots, strokes gained approach, just being close, deadly, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. And you do have, as you referenced, the elevated event and how that may impact odds with people who have been here more frequent. And I think it's a great place to start. Is there anybody else at the top before? And I would constitute, like, for me, and I'll just draw the line here for you as far as like what I don't know, actually maybe like 30 to anything below Shane Lowry. Is there anybody else that there's one guy in this group that I have eyes on, but I'm just curious if there's anybody else that you're looking at in this top frame.
I mean, I'm just going to point out, and I'm not saying it's wrong, because again, the fields are not that different in some ways because you've got a lot more guys here, but like Xander and Tony Finau's numbers, there are people, you're basically saying that Tony Finau was more likely to win the Masters than to win Heritage.
Yep.
It's a little surprising, but again, you're dealing with 100 plus players now instead of 85, and it is a strong field. But I think a guy like Finau, just a lot of people had interested him on the Masters. He didn't win. This kind of seems like that exhale week, and I could see him being fine here. He's got all the skills you need.
That's the guy I was looking at, and it didn't make sense. Now Xander, I don't know what you do with Xander, but the same argument applies here. But
Agree.
Finau was the guy on Bermuda, especially when you look at just where he is popping, strokes gained approach, strokes gained ball striking. When you see him on shorter courses, the field, okay, but like you said, that's the difference right there. You're getting the same exact number, and maybe it's also been a result of just the width between Scheffler, who was Scotty Scheffler, and we honor that, and John Rahm, who was on an absolute freaking tear. So even Cantlay is a little bit of a gap right there, as you would mention, and then you start to see these guys all in there. Now, you can make lesser arguments, I think, for pretty much most of these guys, but when you start to look in the mid-range, where does the value pop for you?
So a guy, and I'm not going to be the first or maybe even the last person,
Ricky?
certainly not going to be the last person to say this. I've seen his name already, and it's not on. I'm trying to scroll up a little for me, friend, because
Okay, I thought I was going to center Ricky Fowler here for you.
no, even though I don't mind that, I'm on, and a guy I don't bet a lot. I think that Tom Kim makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
This is a guy that I have been, I don't know what you want to call it. Certainly not on the Tom Kim bandwagon, not because I don't think he's great, just because I think he's perpetually overvalued, and I don't think every course is perfect for him. I think this ultimately, when we see Tom Kim in 5 years, we're going to look back and say this is the type of track where he can really excel. Really steady with the irons. He doesn't need crazy distance, and he can kind of take this course apart. So I don't know exactly where his form is, but 45-1 in a field like this, I've seen a lot of people beyond this, and I totally agree that he's worth a splash.
I don't have much I think that's going to beat that. In fact, the only guy that I would look at, and he has shorter odds by all means, so I recognize that Tom Kim has value, but compared to, golfer ratio, I don't know where this would fit. But if you look at guys, before we get into something that's, a little wild here, a little crazy, and depending on where that may be,
Eagle. I love
70-1 for him. I mean,
I did not have a good Masters, but the only thing I got right, I had Thigala, and you can check the Discord. Top debutant for Thigala. That really helped me last week. He was awesome on Sunday, and he really bailed me out.
If you're going to bring up the Discord, then why don't we just continue to add on? Why don't we just pile on?
Okay.
So what was that? The top 50% off your first week below. Look at that. Ben's on there. I'm on there. Lindquist is on there. Isaiah's on there. So what'd you hit? Top debutante. Beautiful.
Yeah, plus 550. It was lovely.
That's fantastic.
I needed it, believe me, because my outright card did not have Mr. Rahm on it.
We boosted Thigala on FanDuel for plus money at top 40, and then we bet him top 20 on DK. So that was Discord love too, and it was just it was a fantastic thing to watch. So that's all. Just giving people the opportunity to sign up here on the Discord. I'm sorry.
No. You're telling people the important stuff. I'm just rambling. You mentioned it.
No.
Join the community.
I'm going to hit you with one guy by the way, I think first off, he's 70-1. He's not tired. He's too young to be tired, right? Like, how do you not? I think the point you made about Tony Finau is going to be relative to a lot of guys here. They're just going to be in different stages as far as where you bet them. Does that make sense as far as the overall approach? I think if it's Rahm and Scheffler, if it's the fact that these odds have been impacted by more names overall, the reality is that I think you can make that argument to a greater extent. So the only other guy that I would throw in here would be, I don't know what he would be in a non-elevated event if he were playing. I don't know what the result would be as far as the transfer over on that. But for a guy who I thought played pretty well overall at the Masters, I'll take a shot with Shane Lowry at 30-1, man.
Yeah, I have no problem with Lowry. I'll be honest. I wish, and I'm going to search it after the show. I'll be on OddsShopper Premium. I hope I can find better than 30-1 because I like the spot for him. I don't love the odds, but Shane Lowry's a player. We don't know yet. We're filming this on Monday. Maybe there's going to be nasty weather. Certainly, Heritage in general, I think, can bring some conditions that suit a guy like Shane Lowry. So I'm fine with it. And he's another one. He's played here. He's got 3 out of 4 top 10s, a pair of third place finishes. He clearly knows what he's doing around this track.
Is there anybody as we get Bez?
Oh, no.
Is there anybody as we get? Is this going to be the week that Maverick McNeely breaks through? Denny McPutz is back on the scene. Brian Harmon, Sepp, Kitayama, major disappointment for me, missing the cut.
Ben Martin. Adam Scott is 130 to 1.
You want him?
So you know what? I'm gonna pull an audible here. I think these guys are all awesome, but let's go to the top 20 market if we can. What do you say? Look at some of these guys.
Yep.
In that type of market, you're gonna get you're not gonna find 130 to 1, but you're telling
me. By the way,
me
I'll load up on Finau top 20 at plus
that's
money.
Plus money right there on Tony. Yeah. You're gonna get 3, 4, 5 to 1 on some of the guys we were just talking about.
Yeah, Lowry as well. All right, so let's go. Where do you want to go? Down. Let's go down. Let's see what we can load up with top 20s here.
Look at Bez plus 330.
You got Seamus. Tell me, I'm following your lead.
So guys that I have interest in the top 20 market is right in this range. So I think that a guy like Bez with his crafty short game, I like these numbers. Definitely going to shop it. Adam Scott, wherever he is, again, that's just to me. He jumps off the page like Adam Scott or Tyler Duncan. No, I love T-Dunks, but like Adam Scott's a player, man. I thought he showed flashes at the Masters. There's going to be plenty of guys in this market and even 3 balls. You know, if you're going matchup based, I'm going to tax. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
No. Go ahead. I just want to let you know, like, we'll get to 3 balls. I didn't know if there was anybody else you wanted to hit.
No, again, I think it's always a fine line. Oh, uh-oh. You see Griot there? You see him? You see him just lurking?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going. There's a name for me. I'm going.
You want to be...
I'm going. Don't worry. I got it.
You want to be careful. Like, you start saying, oh, my God, Higo, 9 to 1. Like...
Here you go.
Lipsky, another Euro.
Look, this is, call it what you want, but it's 10 to 1 for a guy when we talk about metrics and data, or not even data, but we're talking about metrics and what you look at a course like this. He just happens to be a long shot from that group we were talking about, right? Where it was just like approach and just getting in. He pops, and it's crazy because he's not going to win, so I'm not going to bet him. And my God, he's probably at the bottom right of the list as far as outright is concerned. But he's at some point in this tournament, Ben, we're going to be talking about him. I might even take him somewhere, like if I could live first round, what have you. But you watch out. David Lipsky's a player.
I will remember that.
This week.
He was not on my radar, I'll be honest. I think that one of the interesting things about this course, though, is that you can do it a lot of different ways. And Lipsky, if you do want some encouragement, he actually looked pretty good at Valspar. He just couldn't get the putter going. And Valspar, Copperhead have some similarities to what you're going to face here. So I think this is a pretty good – the beauty of this, if you want to put a positive spin on this week, it could be one of the best betting weeks of the year if the big names are running on empty because they have dragged down – the odds, and everyone's odds look fantastic for these markets because they're assuming that Jon Rahm and Scheffler and these guys are going to be ready to go. If they're not, you're going to get big time numbers that you wouldn't get if those guys weren't in the field.
All right, let's bang through these real quick. And you don't have to force anything. We never do. So let's look and see if there's anything that pops on a 3 ball before we get out of here. You mentioned, look, it's a shame that Thiegele and Kuchar are going up in this one because I am interested in Kuchar. Not outright, but the course history and the familiarity with it. I mean, and look, you know, it's not like Texas we saw, right? He played well. He didn't play at the Masters, so he's coming in at least with some momentum. Morikawa is an interesting one, but it's almost like they know the show in the sense of, well, they put him up there with Finau, so I don't really want to mess around with that. JT could be shot. You brought up Tom Kim, right? Fitzpatrick is really sneaky because he looked like he was hurt, and then he came out and he played the Masters really well. But I'm with you on Kim, so I think that might be interesting. Is there anything else? And you start to look at these, you know, Lowry, I know we talked about him already, but Lowry, as far as that 3 ball, might be appealing, although he is the lowest value of the 3. And then you've got a couple of other ones here at the bottom, including the top ones like Cantlay. If you really wanted to take advantage of that, bounce back for Cantlay, where Scheffler and Rahm are just cooked.
Yeah, I mean, these are obviously they've stacked the 3 balls of, you know, these are top end. This is not groups just yet. You know, these are just guy, top end guys
Right,
next to each other.
right.
So it is a little different. I personally would kind of wait and see where who's playing with who, what's going on, just because these are, you look at the odds. Every single one that they've done is basically three guys that are about equal in my mind. So it's a little tricky. I think if I was going to pick one guy in one group, when I look at this, it would actually be, when I go down to that Lowry group, I think that Shane Lowry just sets up well in general this week.
Yeah, I love that, man. Good stuff. All right, nice. We'll add them to the list.
Yeah, it's just tough because, again, these are man-made creations here.
Right. Not groupings by all means.
Yeah, like it's nicer to me to attack a three ball where there's like one guy that I say, I think he's kind of out of it, and now I'm looking at one of two guys realistically that have a pretty good shot to win this three ball.
Awesome. All right, we'll be back next week. RBC in the house, so make sure that you continue to play along, and follow along what's happening here with the Discord as well. Join, hop in. You can talk to Ben throughout as far as any type, especially if anybody else pulls out. My goodness, at this point, it's probably going to be Fee now, knowing our luck and everything we put on there. We'll get another shot at Phil at some point. Look, it was pretty good for the live. I almost felt like we were lied to, Ben, this whole time, that the live didn't exist and that it was some sort of beast, some boogeyman. And here Patrick Reed was a guy we talked about at length. We had him top 20 on the show last week. That was we talked up live a bunch. And I felt like we were lied to overall. Like this tournament just didn't exist.
We'll see. I think it's going to be fascinating to see. Is it going to get worse, or is this just the way it is? Like in these live guys, some of them are not going to be able to play anymore in the majors. Obviously, the good ones will continue, but we'll wait and see. It's been one data point. I thought live represented themselves pretty damn well, considering DJ was nowhere really. So Brooks and them picked up the slack.
At JazzRaz DFS,
Yes.
at Shander Show. Anything else? We'll see you next week.
See you guys next week. Let's cash some
Phil.
tickets.
How great was that? See this guy. Come on.
Terrible.
You're going to hit that thing? I can't.
I'm savoring the moment.
You're looking back at Phil. I'll just keep talking. You cut me off. I'm looking back at Phil, just marveling at what he did. See, I knew it.